Parents face a nursery fee hikes of up to 20% after Reeves' national insurance contribution increase. We're going to read into this exclusive from iNews, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an exclusive from iNews with the headline that parents face nursery fee hikes of up to 20% after Reeves' national insurance increase. The government is understood to have ruled out exempting the childcare sector from the impact of the increase in national insurance contributions levied on employers. Guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and share it across social media so others are notified of this video. Another sector that is going to suffer the consequences of this decision by the government to increase national insurance employers. I said then, and I say it now. There was always going to be a ripple effect that somewhere the cost would have to come from something. And parents are going to face the brutality of this cost, especially if it's going to be hitting the nursery area, when already it is already a struggle for daycares and for nurseries as it is to take in children. It costs parents so much to get these kids in them as well. And now they're going to be paying even more. Especially when you think about some of the some parents who don't have a lot of money in their pocket. They're already struggling and using a lot of their money to put into for their kids of the future. Then you have this situation. What happened to growth? This isn't growth, because what you're also doing as well is that if these parents cannot cope with the fees and whatnot, then they're just going to end up either try to take the child somewhere or do what a lot of parents do these days. Leave their kids with their grandparents if they can, because it's just not worth the cost for them. And while it may seem like a good thing, I remember back when I was a child, and pretty much most kids, they did not spend with their grandparents because childcare did not cost an absolute arm and a leg. But unfortunately, this is the reality of the situation that we are in. But another area that's going to be hit by this budget, and you have to ask yourself, how is this benefiting our economy? If this what could potentially lead to, and like I said, they could leave them with grandparents. But what if they don't have grandparents, Regan? What if they don't have someone to give their kids to look after? What then? Well, that means that person works less hours. That means that's less person in the productivity. That means you have another gap in the market that someone needs to fill. And so in turn, you're hurting the economy instead of growing the economy, because you want people working all the time. But it's going the opposite effect, isn't it? They didn't really think about this, did they, Labour? Or did they? Parents face nursery increase fees of up to 20% in next year due to the tax hikes and wage rises included in Rachel Reeves' budget, the eye has been told. Nursery leaders have warned that the hike in employers' national insurance contribution and the minimum wage has added tens of thousands of pounds onto their costs. They said they would be left with no choice but to impose above inflation fee rises if the government fails to mitigate the budget measures. There also fears that some areas will be left with childcare deserts because nurseries will be forced to close and expansions to provide extra places cancelled. State-owned industries such as hospitals will have their funding increased to make up for the impact of the higher national insurance costs. But ministers have privately ruled out offering any further exemptions from the levy to bodies which could sit outside the public sector. Fee hikes could come out as soon as January. Nursery groups told the Eye months before the government's funded children's support is extended to 30 hours for working parents of children under the age of 5 to help with the cost, which is due in September. The Early Years Alliance, the largest and most representative early years organisation in England with 14,000 members, warned parents to expect fee increases of between 15 and 20%, as well as major shortfalls in nursery places. Parents can still get government-funded childcare hours, but fees rises would apply to those who do not qualify or who pay for additional hours of wraparound care, i.e. for early drop-off or late pickup. The cost of optional extras such as meals, consumables, nappies and trips are also set to increase, the sector has warned. How is this growing the economy? Answers on a postcard, please. Neil Litch, CEO of Early Years Alliance, said the organisation has been inundated with nursery providers concerned about the closures since Reeves announced the plans to raise the minimum wage and increase employers' NICs. We've had some hits in our time, but this feels like a punch many in the sector to the cliff edge, he said. The Early Years Alliance, which runs itself 40 nurseries in areas of deprivatisation, said its own costs will increase by $461,000 due to national insurers' employers' contribution increases. Lutz said this will inevitably lead to closures, as parents will not be able to pay the additional cost. He said the policy is completely at odds with the government's plans for the largest investment ever early years expansion program, as well as its mission statement to give every child a fair start in life. I've already been told by many organisations that they will cut their capital expenditure. They will stop investing in building new premises and extending their premises. That will jeopardise the expansion program, he said. The eye is analysed from the Corton Family and Childcare Compensation 2024 survey, which was published in March to determine how much fees might go up on average for part-time nursing care. So part-time nursing care was analysed by the majority of working parents receiving at least 15 hours of government-funded childcare a week. This applies to babies from the age of 9 months, with 30 funded hours available for children aged 3 or 4. A 20% increase in fees could mean the average cost of a part-timer, that's 25 hours a week, nursery places for a child under 2 would increase by $1,643 to $9,859 per year. Parents are paying an average of $8,216 a year, or £158 per week. For a part-time place, according to the charity, bills have already climbed to 7% in the past year, and that's just the past year. In London, parents pay £218 per week for one part-time place, or $11,336 per year. A 20% rise would mean fees reaching $13,603 per year in the capital, a jump of $2,267. In September next year, government-funded childcare has been expanded so that parents can get 30 funded hours for all children under 5. Eligibility for funded support depends on whether parents work, their income, their child's age and circumstances, and their immigration status. Parents cannot access government-funded childcare if one person in the household individually earns £100,000 or more. Early years funding increases annually. The government is expecting to announce the rate in which the funding to pay for the free childcare hours will increase in the coming weeks. Industry sources predict it will be about 3.5 to 4%, factoring in inflation, average wage growth and minimum wage increase. However, it is understood that the government has said it will not factor NI contribution increases for employers. Last year, the Department of Education, DFE, increased funding rates by 4.6%. The I understands the sector is calling for an uplift of around 15% for 9-month-olds and 2-year-olds and a 40% increase for children aged 3 to 4, blaming years of underfunding. Jonathan Broadbury, Director of Policy and Communications at the National Day Nursery Association, the NDNA, said the sector needs a bigger increase than last year to fulfill Labour's mission to expand childcare. It's a very heavy sector. So when 3/4 of the operating costs of a nursery are staffing, anything that puts that up, whether it's national minimum or living wage or national insurance, is disproportionately high impact, he told the Eye. If nurseries are made to pay for national insurance increases with no extra income to cover them, then it does make it more difficult to ensure that the growth of places is available for parents, he added. Broadbury said many providers are currently looking at above-inflation increases on parents' fees, but will confirm once the government has announced the 2025-2026 funding rate. But the lower the increase in government funds, the higher the increase in parental fee. He added that the sector could see hundreds of closures in next year if providers are not adequately funded, as it will not be sustainable for many for past cost increases onto parents, particularly in areas of deprivatisation. It's areas where parents are most reliant solely on government-funded places where they could go out of business, and that will create childcare deserts, Broadbury said. The number of nursery settings to run in the Early Years Alliance has already dropped from 132 to 40 in the last years due to costs, Litch said. So a government spokesperson says the government has a clear mission to break the unfair link between background and opportunity, which starts at a reform and sustainable early years system to give every child the best start in life. We have taken the tough decisions to fix the foundation, so next year's total spending on childcare will reach over £8 billion, testimony to the Education Secretary's commitment to reforming early years as her number one priority. We take the concerns of the sector seriously and will continue to work with them and across government to ensure that funding arrangements are given them much certainty. and confidence as possible to deliver on the promises made to parents. Right. Sure. Just completely ignore the complaints and the things that were just mentioned here in this piece from the Eye, and just say, we're going to fix the foundations, we're going to make everything work. That's not the answer that we want. You're not paying attention. Not paying attention, Labour. Yeah, childcare's, there's going to be less childcare as a direct result, even more as a direct result of this decision to increase national insurance contributions for employers and, and an increase in the minimum wage. It does feel like austerity, doesn't it, in a way? You know, all these childcares that are struggling. And the thing is that, like I said, parents, like, what are they supposed to do in this situation? Like, if you're a high earner, it's not going to affect you too much. Okay, you're giving more back, which is still annoying, but especially for those who are earning a decent enough amount of money. But for those who are just on the thresholds and whatnot, this is quite a whammy for them. They've not really thought about this clearly. They've not thought about this at all. What do you guys think? What do you guys think of this situation? What do you make of what's going to be happening for nurseries? Do you think the government knows what he's doing? Let me know your thoughts and more down in the comments section below. If you found this video informative, please hit the like button. We'd greatly appreciate it. Share this across social media so others are notified of this video. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing, because it really does help support the channel. If you want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.